Today is March 18th. It's the 77th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. In the early morning hours on this day in 1990, two men dressed as Boston police officers convinced the night security guards at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston to let them in. Once in the building, the cops, and I'm doing air quotes, the cops handcuff the security guards and wrap their heads, hands, and feet with duct tape. Once they have the run of the museum, the thieves cut 11 paintings and prints from their frames. They also take an ancient Chinese gu, which is a bronze vessel, and they try to liberate a Napoleonic banner from its frame. They spend a lot of time on this, but they just can't get it free from the frame. So they take a bronze finial from on top of the frame. This finial is a decorative feature in the shape of an eagle. Motion detector records allow investigators to track the thieves' movements throughout the museum during the robbery. The thieves spend 81 minutes in the museum. They make 2 trips to their car with the stolen goods before calmly driving away, leaving the security guards bound in the museum basement. In all, 13 works of art are stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston on this day in 1990. At the time, the pieces of artwork are collectively worth $300 million. Presently, that value is about $500 million. The heist is the largest art theft in the world and the largest property crime of any kind in U.S. history. In addition to the Chinese gu and the bronze eagle finial, the thieves take 5 Degas prints from the Short Gallery. From the Dutch room, they take 3 Rembrandt paintings, including The Storm on the Galilee, noted for being Rembrandt's only seascape, The Concert by Johannes Vermeer, and Landscape with an Obelisk by Govert Flinck. And they take Chez Tortoni by Edouard Manet from the Blue Room. All of these works of art are pieces Isabella Stewart Gardner buys a century earlier as she puts together her world-class collection of art. Isabella Stewart is born in 1840, the daughter of a Scottish immigrant who builds great wealth for himself, first in the Irish linen trade and later in the mining industry. She is thus the beneficiary of a first-rate education, attending private schools in her hometown of New York and also in Paris. She meets Jack Gardner, the older brother of one of her Parisian schoolmates, and the two are married in 1860 and settle in his hometown of Boston, Massachusetts. Isabella gives birth to a boy in 1863, a son they nickname Jackie. At the tender age of 2, Jackie dies of pneumonia, and Isabella plunges into a deep depression. A doctor recommends a trip abroad to help her cope with her grief, and the couple embarks on a year-long journey through Europe, visiting Scandinavia, Russia, Vienna, and mostly Paris. Their time in Europe restores her vigor, renews her spirit, and marks the beginning of a new chapter of her life, that of Isabella Stewart Gardner as a great world traveler and bon vivant. In the last decades of the 1800s, Isabella and Jack travel the world, amassing a stunning collection of art and antiquities reflecting a wide range of cultures from all corners of the globe. By the end of the century, Isabella and Jack's collection has outgrown their Back Bay mansion, and they decide to create a museum as a means of sharing the artwork with the public. But then Jack dies suddenly in 1898, and Isabella is once again consumed with grief. But this time, she knows what her life's purpose is, and she forges ahead with singular focus on the goal to create a legacy that will last beyond both of their lifetimes. Years later, Isabella says, quote, I decided that the greatest need in our country was art. We were a very young country and had very few opportunities of seeing beautiful things, works of art, so I determined to make it my life's work if I could. In her day, Isabella Stewart Gardner is a great patron of the arts and a proponent of community and cultural enrichment, a supporter of the symphony and the Red Sox equally. In 1903, she builds a 4-story museum, a stone's throw from Fenway Park, to house the remarkable collection of art and decorative pieces she and her husband assembled over the past 30 years. It's almost like the thieves enter the museum in the dark of night on this day in 1990 with a specific shopping list. There are more valuable paintings in the museum that they disregard, and the Napoleonic banner that they spend so much time trying to break out of its frame is not of great value. But also, some of the stolen paintings are so well known that there's no way they could be sold. For instance, The Concert by Vermeer, a painting that Gardner buys at a Paris auction in 1892 for $5,000, is valued at the time at $200 million. It's the most valuable unrecovered stolen painting of all time. There are suspects, a lot of suspects, as there tend to be in high-profile cases such as this. And there are a lot of theories about what happens to the paintings after they're stolen on this day and where they might be. The mob is suspected. An East Coast organized crime outfit is the most likely culprit. The IRA, the Irish Republican Army, is also suspected. Or it could be a wealthy foreigner who hires a couple of lackeys to purloin the paintings for his personal collection. Some believe the paintings are buried, or they're in an old farmhouse. They could be in the stables of a racetrack, or hanging in the palace of a Middle Eastern prince. Whatever the truth is, there are no solid leads, even with a $5 million reward. In recent years, suspicion has fallen on one of the guards, the guard who lets the thieves in thinking they're police. It takes investigators a couple of decades to get around to finally reviewing security camera footage from the days right before the robbery. But when they do, they find footage of the guard letting an unauthorized person into the museum the night before the robbery. And remember the motion detector records. The motion detector records investigators used to track the thieves' movements in the museum the night of the robbery. Well, on that night, the only recorded movements in the Blue Room, where the stolen Manet is hanging, are those of the guard as he makes his rounds before the break-in. Suspicious indeed. But it's just that, suspicion. The theft of the paintings and artwork at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum on this day in 1990 continues to be a riddle posed every day to museum visitors. Isabella Stewart Gardner installs the works in the museum in a deliberate manner in order to create an intimate connection to the paintings and furnishings as one moves through the space. Gardner's will stipulates that the permanent collection not be significantly altered. So after the theft of the paintings, on this day in 1990, the empty frames are left in place. Her will also stipulates that anyone named Isabella shall be admitted for free. There are 288 days left in the year.